welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Coming up, the Cavs squeaked out a Game 7 win over the Magic. So Tony Pesta from Fear the Sword is joining us to preview Celtics Cavs round 2. Wayne Spooney and Jake Eisenberg are both here. How's it going, guys?
Doing good.
Good. Yeah, just living the good life, watching these teams scrap it out for the right to be brought to the Boston Celtics, I guess.
Game 7s are so fun when you're not involved.
Yeah.
You can just kind of kick back and enjoy it.
3 a.m. here in Australia. I think it's sometimes you can even sleep through them in certain cases, which I could not say for myself. I was saying offline before we got started, I was painfully scrolling my phone looking for Cavs intel, knowing that we had this pod coming up later today. So before we get to our guest, Spoonie, you've got a series preview coming up on Celtics blog, I think coming out Tuesday morning. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. So you remember Grant Williams had that interview where he was like, Udoka was like, hey, play better, and Joe was like changing everything all the time? I think Joe has struck the perfect balance between two, and I'm going to use that to analyze the Cavs series.
Excellent. Can't wait to read it. All right, let's bring in our guest who has just endured said Game 7 and has been chanting, "We want Boston" for the past 3 hours. Tony Pesta of Fear the Sword. Tony, how's it going, man? Welcome.
Oh, hang on.
Are you muted? I think you're on mute.
My bad. I'm off to the wrong start here.
He's so excited. He muted
Hopefully the
himself.
series
The
gets
lights
off
were brighter
to a
than
similar-
expected. But no, thanks for having me, because honestly, I almost had a heart attack at one point earlier today. So you almost didn't have a guest at all. But I'm glad that I'm here. I want to say quick shout out to Orlando for fighting like hell. Pablo Banchero, superstar in the making. That is a scary young team. Don't overlook them. With that being said, though, I'm very ready to look ahead to this series, which horrible turnaround time for the Cavs, by the way. Just one day off and we're right back in it. So, but thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
No, absolutely. Likewise. Let's just quickly recap that Game 7 for those of us who I've read about the game. I've seen the highlights, but I wasn't able to actually catch up and watch the full game yet. So the Cavs win 106-94. The Magic, they get up early, and then the Cavs scrape back and win this one. Can you just talk about your mindset, like the Cavs fans' mindset as you're going through that game, staring down the barrel of a first-round loss, and suddenly you're clawing back and winning the game? How's that feel?
It feels good, but it was a painful process. I'll tell you that much. When they went down 18, biggest Game 7 comeback in NBA history.
Wow.
Just started there.
Wow.
When they went down by 18, I'll be honest, and I'm pretty optimistic as a Cavs fan. I was like, you know what? It was a good season. It's over. Like, I was ready to phone it in. And then all of a sudden, they have a run towards the end of the second quarter. They start to get back in it. And all of a sudden, my heart's back in it. I'm feeling like, okay, maybe they can come back. But I think Cavs fans probably across the board felt a lot of PTSD from last year. They probably thought, here they go again. This team's about to wilter under the pressure. They take a punch and they just go down right away. They managed to come back. Incredible third quarter, incredible fourth quarter. Just the whole second half was everything you could have hoped to see from this Cavs team. That the biggest question for them is their mental toughness. So to take a punch like that, even going back further, losing Game 6 after the game you got from Donovan Mitchell, 50 points, and you still drop that one, and then you start Game 7 by getting punched in the mouth. To bounce back from that, I think Cavs fans feel pretty good right now.
Man, I was watching I watched it on delay. So I started at about 5 a.m. my time. So I wasn't on Twitter or anything, but I could only imagine the shitstorm that was enveloping Cavs Twitter when they went down by 18 points. Like, obviously, there's been a lot of scrutiny around the Donovan Mitchell stuff and the Mobley and Allen fit. Obviously, Allen's out at the moment, which we'll get into. So, like, all of those things were coming to a head, like, down 18. I was like, oh, man, I was thinking about Tony trying to come on this podcast. I'm like, man, this is an existential crisis type of vibe right now. But I also knew that like the Cavs offense was so bad that all the Cavs needed to do was get a little bit of momentum offensively, and they could get back in this game because the Magic can easily, they've done it throughout the series. They can have quarters where they barely crack 10 points, and that's kind of what happened from the second quarter through the third quarter. And like Franz Wagner 1 for 15. That's rough. Suggs and Franz were a combined 3 for 28, which like that anyone can get back in the game. Anyone can get back in a game where two of the best three players offensively are going to have a game like that. And they got the crowd back with them. Garland's alive. just
Thankfully.
towards the end of the game there, which I was like, oh, I didn't love to see that. I was like,
what happened there?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Oh,
So yeah,
man.
how's Garland's brain? I think at this point.
So it's been, probably the worst season Garland has had since his rookie year. This whole year has just been season from hell, absolute nightmare. And to start this game, again, just to back up even further, the end of game 6, horrific. I don't know if you guys saw the 8-second violation that happened.
Oh yeah.
But game hanging in the balance, and Garland gets called for an 8-second because his head's just out of it. I don't know. The biggest problem for him a lot of times is it seems like he is just in his own head and overthinking things. And that carried over to the start of game 7. He looked horrible at the start. There was a lot of Cavs fans wondering, as my lamp is just has a mind of its
Mine
own.
does that too all
Don't
the
worry
time.
about that.
You're in
It
good
just decides
company.
to turn on and off whenever it wants. Darius Garland started the game off horribly. There was a point there where we were wondering, does JB, the coach, does he just have to yank Garland? Do you just have to bench him and go down with Levert or even Sam Merrill? Thankfully, and I don't envy the head coaches in that position because it's like, what you can't go down without your best guys out there. So we left him in there, and he just had. It's not like the greatest fourth quarter of all time, but for Darius Garland, it must have felt like it. He had a huge triple. He gets a steal late in the game, goes one-on-one with Jalen Suggs, hits a floater, hits a couple free throws, and it felt like if you wanted any chance of Garland turning it around, you needed a performance like that in a game 7 where it matters the most. And you can't overlook the potential momentum that he could have built in that moment.
Yeah, and no turnovers too in the entire fourth quarter, and 3 assists. So he started to look better. So I've watched a good amount of this series. He has looked so hesitant to me. Do you think it's like the Magic's length, or is that something that's kind of been happening all season? Because full disclosure, he's on my fantasy team, so I've kept tabs on him. And you're right, he has not been great this year.
Yeah, I think hesitant. It's the best way to describe him. Just the indecisiveness. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence. Darius Garland broke his jaw earlier in the season, as Celtics fans are probably aware. It happened against you guys.
Yeah.
And after that, he loses, I think, 13 pounds because he's not able to eat solid food for a while. And when he returns from that jaw injury, we saw it a lot in this Orlando series. He just can't take contact like he used to, especially at the rim. So it's a lot of rushing. It's a lot of scoop layups, avoiding the contact, not even being able to get to the rim. And it's almost like every time he gets those openings, he's maybe overthinking it and not looking to shoot, passing when he needs to take the floater, just dribbling into traffic and not having the confidence to go up. So I don't really know if this is something that's going to be turned around overnight just because of this Game 7 victory. But seeing him put it together in the brightest moment there definitely felt good.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Jake.
It's funny, like he was pretty good in those 2 Boston games before he got injured. Like he has 26 and 7 on 11 for 23 shooting, 4 for 8 from 3. And the next game he has 19. He had 5 turnovers in that game, so he had been struggling. Boston was kind of cruising in that game, but again, like 3 for 7 from 3. And I think we were actually streaming at least one of the first Cavs game on playback, and we've been huge fans of Mitchell and Garland. They've always played, like the Celtics and Cavs played a lot of like the 2 overtime games last year, right? Mm-hmm. And so like we have a lot of praise for those 2 guys. And that, I mean, look like that, the injury looks like a tipping point because he never really recovered from there. Hopefully he can build some momentum coming into the next series. Like I worry for him, it almost feels like he has to have a good first quarter. Otherwise that could just be it. Because like can he carry that momentum in? It's like, and Suggs, obviously one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Mm-hmm. Magic, one of the 3rd best defense, 0.1 points behind the Celtics for the regular season. But his reward from getting through that is now for Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Like even Peyton Pritchard, I think has been really good defensively and can that's a nice matchup for Pritchard as well. So it's not exactly like he's going to get a rest or any let up coming into this next series.
Yeah, it's only going to get tougher from here.
Yeah, well, let's shift now to round 2. Game 1, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday night. I believe that's 9 a.m. Wednesday here in East Coast of Australia. The Celtics won the regular season series 2-1. Could have maybe been 3-0 if it wasn't for a Dean Wade masterclass, which we'll get into a little bit. Tony, just broadly speaking, how do you and Cavs fans feel about this series going in? You've barely had a moment to stop and think since wrapping up this series against the Magic. Now you're facing the Celtics in round 2. What's the overall vibe from the Cavs side?
Yeah, super quick turnaround, like I said. So there's almost not even enough time for us to think about this. Right now, we're all feeling good, obviously. My objective mind is telling me it's still probably going to be Celtics, and maybe not a landslide, but I would say 5 sounds reasonable. But you know how it is as a fan. We're here now. Anything can happen. It's the playoffs. We've seen crazier things. As you mentioned, for whatever reason, the Cavs and Celtics just their games turn into chaos for whatever reason. And so I'm still going to pick the Celtics to win, but I think all of the Cavs fans would agree that if we can get this series to go 6, maybe even 7 games, just make it competitive, I think we'd be pretty happy with that. I don't see any Cavs fans picking them to win, but I think a lot of Cavs fans right now feel like we do have a fighter's chance just because we're here now and anything can happen.
Yeah, it's a tough spot mentally, I think, for the Cavs. I mean, like, you come out of this war. Like, I mean, the Magic, as you said at the top, like, they have an elite defense. And, I mean, across the board, like, Mitchell had some awesome moments here. Like, but he ends the series with 28.7 points per game. He ended up taking 23 shots a game, 25% from 3. And the last couple, I mean, he's just team on his back. Like, he only took 36 shots, I think it was, in game 6, 50 bomb, and then a loss. And tonight it wasn't quite the same insane load, but he's still doing
17 free throws too.
Yeah. So he's still insane usage. So that feels like their answer, if there is one. Like, can Mitchell try and elevate again? But he doesn't look quite like himself either, even though he is doing like insane stuff.
No, that's the crazy part, is that he doesn't look anywhere near 100%. He doesn't look right at all. And yet he still had a pretty unreal 2 games to end that series. He's running around the floor like he's wearing flip-flops. He has just no vertical explosion at all. It's honestly very strange that he's very reliant on getting to the rim, which you wouldn't expect for someone dealing with a knee injury. But right now what we're seeing is he's shooting a lot of runners, floaters, scoop shots. Like, he can jump laterally, but he has no vertical elevation. So he can't, like, the 3-point shot has abandoned him still. He's relying just a lot on his brute strength getting to the rim. And you kind of mentioned this a little when talking about Garland, but the thing that probably worries me the most with this matchup is that against Orlando, the Cavs found their most success by matchup hunting, getting switches onto Wagner, Paolo Banchero, even Jonathan Isaac and Wendell Carter Jr. just did not have the speed to keep up with Garland or Mitchell. That's when they had their most success. You look at the Celtics. Who are you matchup hunting? Are you getting Mitchell onto Derek White? Do you want Drew Holiday on him? And then Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown? Like, those matchups just aren't as winnable for the Cavs. And so I do worry that it'll be more difficult, especially for Mitchell when he's clearly not 100%, to get himself going. And Garland, who has already struggled this season, he had some success against the Orlando Wings, who aren't bad defenders by any means, but I think the Celtics Wings are just a step ahead of that. So things are going to get a lot harder from here.
Yeah, I think if you're Mitchell or Garland, you've got to try and get Al Horford switched on to you, which like hasn't necessarily been a sustainable tactic for Celtics opposition, but that was actually something you could more so go at Kristaps Porzingis using, and now he's out for likely the entire series, which sort of brings us to the health discussion, because to capture the overall mood of Celtics fans going into this series, there's a spectrum of like quietly / cautiously optimistic, like Celtics in 6-ish. And then there's the loud, we can see a lot of them in the comments here, Celtics in 4, Celtics in 5. That's sort of the spectrum of confidence. But a lot of that falls on the health status of a lot of these Cavaliers players. So let's start with, I think most important from my perspective is what's going on with Jarrett Allen. He's obviously a huge rim deterrent for anyone, and especially the Celtics' chances of getting to the rim with success and sustainability. What's going on with Jarrett Allen? Is he likely to come back at any point in the series? And if so, are you expecting much out of him?
Yeah, so we had a quote today from Jason Lloyd of The Athletic where he basically just said that, right there, Jarrett Allen is in excruciating pain, which to me doesn't sound like a good sign. Obviously, he gets elbowed in the ribs in game 1 by Franz Wagner. It happens again in game 4, kind of doing his best Kelly Olynyk impression. Cleveland never forgets. But
it wasn't a tug, man. He was just moving.
Yeah. Okay. Either way, moving on from that, Jared Allen, he was questionable in these last 3 games, but I think it's important that Jackson Flickinger, my buddy / co-host, he was at the games. Jared Allen didn't come out to warm up at any point, didn't go through any of his workout routines. It kind of feels like he was questionable just to, keep the Magic on their toes. Didn't sound like he planned on playing at all. There's reports that he's having pain even just trying to breathe. I'm not a doctor, but I've heard that there's an increased risk of him cracking his ribs if he plays. So I'll be honest, I'm not expecting Jared Allen to play. I would be pleasantly surprised if he did. And on that same note, I'm assuming we're going to talk about Dean Wade, the Celtics killer, at some point.
Yes.
I'm also not really expecting him to play. There was a video, I think, last week that came out of him working out in the practice facility, and he is still moving very gingerly on that knee. He's had a knee strain for the past month and a half, 2 months. If he comes back, I would be surprised. So that's 2 huge blows to the Cavs that, of course, changes the way that this series will play out.
Yeah, and real quick on Allen, the Cavs were +2 against the Magic with him on the court and -9 with him off. And when Allen's out there without Mobley, they're +9 net rating. So he's just a massive piece for you guys. Had an amazing season all year, too. So it sucks he went down.
Yeah, Eric Weiss in the chat here. Jared Allen, maybe the most underrated player in the league. Phenomenal player. Yeah, he's awesome, dude. I thought, Mitchell's obviously Mitchell, but I thought you could have easily made the argument that Allen was just as important, if not more important, early in the series to win those first 2 games. I know you. I don't have to tell you, Tony. He is. He was an All-Star a couple years ago. Incredible defender, and without that piece, obviously, I'm not sure it evens out necessarily without Porzingis, but I would say that him being out for the Cavs is that's a real problem. That might be the death note, really.
Yeah, it's a huge blow, especially because, and I would agree, those first 2 games against Orlando, I think Jared Allen probably was the best player in the series. He just completely dominated both ends. And the issue that we will most likely see, obviously we'll see how it ends up playing out, but a lot of people want the Cavs to split the 2 bigs. But the problem right now is that you can rely on Jared Allen to be the lone big out there. We haven't been able to fully rely on Mobley to be a full-time center. So when you do the 1 big lineup thing, that's why the numbers look good with Jared Allen out there regardless. And with Mobley, it's a little different because Allen has the size, the physicality, and just really his whole life playing center. And it's just a comfortable fit out there. So not having him does change the way that the Cavs play. Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell were the 2 most important players for the Cavs all year long. So not having Allen, it's going to hurt.
I wanted to ask on that Mobley piece, but that's a good point. When the Cavs went on that crazy hot run, 17-2, whatever it was, Mobley was out for that whole stretch, right? And so Allen has been incredible. So what are Mobley's limitations as the 5? Because he had some incredible moments defensively against Paolo Banchero. I don't think anyone has any real defensive concerns about him. I get he's a little light in the ass, we call it. He's got a little bit of that to him, similar to Porzingis a little bit. But yeah, what are his limitations as a 5?
Yeah, I think the main thing, some of it is being a little too thin. Defensively, though, it's not really the concern. I think he can hold up defensively as a 5. It's just on offense. He struggles against stronger opponents because of that lack of size. He really, if he has to go against a more physical center, he fumbles the ball. He loses control of it. He seems a little too timid to just go straight up. He'll bring the ball down. He maybe makes poor decisions when he gets it. Whereas when he's playing the 4 and he's kind of more so the tertiary option, it's faster decisions. It's catching it going right up. And so I think honestly, the biggest thing too is just he can't set screens. I'll just say it. He's a horrible screen setter still at this stage in his career. And if you're going to be the 5, you got to be able to set screens. It's a lot different when Jared Allen's up there setting the screen and Mobley's in the dunker spot. It's just a whole different dynamic. And so I will say, I think he will have I'll be optimistic. I think he'll have a better series against the Celtics than he did against Orlando, just because the Magic were playing 4 guys over 6'10". Everyone out there was a brute. Not to say that the Celtics are not capable of doing that, but I don't think they're as physical and as scrappy. So I think there will be more opportunities for Mobley to cater to that crafty side of his game rather than trying to outmuscle anybody, if that makes sense.
Jake was just celebrating. If you're
Oh,
listening
dude,
to the
I
audio
mean-
show later, I think just celebrating the comparison between the Bam massively
Yes.
egregiously illegal screens compared to that of Evan Mobley.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
Bam is like one of the best screen setters in the NBA, largely because he's allowed to set illegal screens, similar to Draymond Green, similar to Kevin Garnett. Like, if you are able to get away with it, and then it just makes you an incredible screen setter. So like to go from that to Mobley, I think is a big deal. I think it's a good point on Mobley. I think it could be a better Mobley series from that matchup perspective. But I think from a Mitchell side of things, the Magic have the size defensively, but he's so quick. Whereas like the Celtics, actually their perimeter guys match up a little more defensively.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Look, we're going to keep it going, but first, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. March is over, but the biggest moments of college basketball tip off in the month of April. Be a part of the action on Prize Picks for both men's and women's college basketball. And get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. You can even make the play-in rounds seem interesting since we all know the Celtics won't be there. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. Personally, I'm looking at Derek White more on points because they are criminally low, and we all know Derek White is going to come up big in the postseason. So download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100.
That's right, Prize Picks. It's a lot of fun. Download the app, use the sign-up code CLNS to get the $100 first deposit match, or up to $100, I should say, and supplement your hoops watching experience. It's a lot of fun. Spoonie, in a second, I want to get to which player on either side, on either team, do we fear the most, and go around the room on that. But you've added a lot of advanced stats to our run sheet, Spoons. I want to make sure that I at least pause every now and then and be like, what about this stat? So is there anything that we've talked about so far that you want to get to? I just want to make sure that the people out there know the effort that has been put into this run sheet.
Okay, full disclosure, kind of forgot Tony was coming on, so I prepped like we wouldn't have a Cavs expert, so I wanted to get a lot of stats in there. But one thing I do want to ask Tony about is I was really surprised to see that your all's rebounding numbers are your decent defensive rebounding team, but a terrible offensive rebounding team. And when I think of the Cavs, I think of that double big lineup, with Mobley, who, he is lighter in the ass, if you will, but he's super athlete. He's really quick and he's smart. And Allen obviously is just a beast. So is it scheme why you all do you prefer to defend in transition more and don't commit resources to the offensive glass? Is that why?
I think part of it is the scheme, especially in the Orlando Magic series. We just saw maybe one guy crashes each shot and then everyone else is already back. Part of that is definitely trying to keep a lid on the opposing team, limit their transition attempts. But I also think just outside of the two bigs, this lineup is small. I mean, you're playing two undersized guards in Mitchell and Garland. Neither one of them are great rebounders, although Mitchell has definitely put in some extra effort on that side of the floor recently. Max Strus is playing the wing at 6'5". Okoro is playing a lot of 4. George Niang, who has drawn a lot of hatred from Cavs fans, not a great rebounder despite having a lot of size for him. And really, there's just no one else. Dean Wade was honestly probably our best rebounder on the bench. If you count Tristan Thompson, you can throw him in there, but he's not really a consistent
Celtics
rotational
legend.
Player. Celtics, hey, Horford versus Thompson, round a million.
I know,
We're just going to keep
true.
doing this forever. But yeah, I think it comes down to half of it being the scheme of them wanting to limit opportunities in transition. And really the other thing is they have the two bigs, but that's it. They have two bigs on the whole roster, basically. And so maybe the addition of Marcus Morris will help them there a little bit too. And I do think Okoro, Garland, Mitchell, they've all placed some emphasis on trying to get on the glass, but there's still just a lack of size there.
Georges Niang does not segue well into this next question. Georges Niang, the minivan, as he's known. But which player, Tony, we'll start with you. Which player do you fear the most? So coming from the Celtics, you're about to face the Boston Celtics in the second round of the playoffs. Is it Tatum, is it Brown, or is there someone else that stands out to you as who might be the most damaging, the most impactful player against the Cavs?
Can I just say everybody? But no, I actually do have an answer. I won't cop out. Of course, Brown and Tatum are scary. They're capable of beating you. I think Derek White is going to be the terrorizer in this series. He's just that build.
Tony knows ball, dude.
Yeah.
He's like Josh Hart on steroids for this against this Cavs team, because he's going to get all the backbreaking rebounds. He's going to end up sneaking in there and getting a steal. He's going to hit those backbreaker threes, the momentum swinging plays. That it's all going to be Derek White. That's who I'm going to see in my nightmares, I think, because while Tatum and Brown are going to have their games, Derek White's the one where you can't afford to have him go off if you're any other team. And as we've seen, he's more than capable of doing it. So I do think that's going to be the player who causes the most damage.
Well, I'll ask you this, because like what the Heat did. So Derek White always goes nuts in Game 4, 38 points, and then goes off again in Game 5. Like the Heat fans hate him. Finally, we have a player that they hate, like we have with Caleb Martin. But the Heat decided to put Bam on Tatum, and they just assigned a lot of resources to Jason Tatum, which led to him. He was actually the third leading scorer on the Celtics in that series, just making the right play, and that is why Derek White kind of ended up being the guy. So I think that's a great choice, really endearing yourself and proving your ball-knowing abilities by choosing Derek White.
Come back anytime.
Exactly. Do you see, like I saw the Cavs playing a lot of drop. They would switch some of the perimeter guys, but did you see Bickerstaff trying to maybe put Mobley on Tatum or any funky stuff like that? No, Bickerstaff isn't maybe known as the most creative coach here and there.
Yeah, you could say that. I think you have to try to experiment a little bit. I think Mobley is too great and versatile as a defender not to give him some reps on Tatum. But again, with Jared Allen out, you are going to need Mobley to be the rim protector. So it really limits their ability to do that. Again, this is where not having Dean Wade hurts them, because he's really their only big wing defender. You have a Okoro who did a fantastic job on Banchero in that series, but he's 6'5". I mean, these guys can just shoot over top of him. Even if he works as hard as he does and he gets quality contests on them, there's just a lot of size there. And so Tatum, if he's able to make the right play, that's the thing that scares me the most, honestly, too, because the Cavs do spend a lot of time protecting the paint. Again, by design, that's basically their bread and butter. They're going to live with the three-point variance of their opponent. And with the Boston Celtics, that could burn you in a hurry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sweeney or Ben.
Go ahead, Ben.
Well,
we're kicking the rock around the perimeter right here.
I know. It's a lot of fun. The ball movement is insanely efficient on the show. Jaylen Brown, who did not shine all that brightly against the Miami Heat. We've talked about it ad nauseum. The Heat know exactly what to do to disrupt everything that Jaylen Brown is about. And I don't know that the Cavs necessarily possess that quality. And yes, they've got a lot of now very recent film to study on how to disrupt JB. But I have to believe when I try and fall asleep at night that Jaylen Brown is going to bounce back and be his more like all-NBA, all-star-ish self in this one. And matchup-wise, personnel-wise on the Cavs, there's a lot less that they can do to limit JB's output. So I expect a lot of aggressive, like first quarter JB, first punch thrown, getting to his short turnaround midi post-ups, getting Garland, Donovan Mitchell switched on him and going to work. So I think this is going to be a JB at the forefront series. Or if I'm the Cavs, that's who I may be fearing the most. Although Derek White still obviously comes to mind as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so. Real quick, Tony, you mentioned that like you just you hope Tatum doesn't make the right play. And that's basically what the Heat banked on in that entire series. And they're the Cavs are a more talented team than this version of the Miami Heat, especially without Jimmy Butler. When they put Bam on him, that really did undermine their entire defensive scheme, because we basically just used Tatum as a decoy and then there was nobody protecting the rim. So yeah, I think you make a great point there. It's like, you can't waste Mobley on Tatum without Jared Allen out there to protect the rim. So I think that's a really difficult balance. Yeah, I think you're right, Ben. I'm with you. I think this is a JB series. I like his matchups. Like Tatum sometimes, like these smaller guys, like the Mitchell types who are like small and strong, can kind of get into his handle and bother him a little bit. And Jalen's just so powerful and so direct these days, and especially without Allen there protecting the rim, I think he'll be able to get downhill on just about anybody the Cavs can throw at. Like, I'm not even sure who you have defend Jaylen Brown. Max Strus, Karis LeVert, I don't know.
It gets thin real quick. There's so many options for them to pick on, whether it's Garland, Mitchell, Strus. It's gonna be a tough series.
Yeah, you mentioned like the 3-point variance, and that's kind of how like they defend. The Heat tried to do the opposite, which tried to suppress our 3-point attempts. The Celtics still ended up getting up 39 per game in the Heat series, which is best for second best in the playoffs so far. And I had a look. The Cavs got up 29.9 threes in the first round, which is 14th out of 16. And part of that's obviously like there's no like the Allen, Mobley, not huge volume guys. That's a problem. That's like you can't be 10 3-point attempts off the Celtics. But like you mentioned Max Strus. Can he bring some of the Tatum rules, some of the devil magic to the Cleveland Cavaliers? Because, I mean, he's had his moments against the Celtics, absolutely. I think maybe a little overstated. I wouldn't put him anywhere near the Caleb Martin category of someone who's, like, destroyed the Celtics. But, you know, it can't hurt to have someone that's been part of those series on the team to help. But that like Donovan Mitchell's the obvious answer for me is like who's the scariest from the Cavs side of things. But that's an element that scares me a little bit because he got going late in this game and kind of put the game away, hitting some of those big shots, and like he doesn't lack for confidence. I'm a big Strus fan. I thought that was a huge pickup for the Cavaliers and a big loss for the Heat because he's not just a shooter. He can kind of come downhill, play make a little bit, get to the rim a little bit. Underrated defender. Still not necessarily someone that I think can like consistently slow down the Celtics perimeter guys, but he would probably be my like, if there's a guy that can kind of come out and make this series frustrating, he'd probably be at the top of my list.
I have a goofy one that's not Mitchell. I saw this man put the ball on the floor, go right at Jonathan Isaac, and finish, I believe, lefty. Karis LeVert, renowned Celtics killer.
Celtics killer, yeah.
Dude, like, if you're looking to, like, for the Cavs to make this a 7-game series, 2 crazy outlier Karis LeVert shooting games are the way to do it, and he's done it against the Celtics. Even though he's been bad against us recently, I'm still freaking terrified of that dude.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, what are the 2 games? There was the 50 bomb against when he was with the Nets. Has he had a monster one with the Cavs that I'm forgetting at the top of my head?
I feel like he had
the 41 against Boston.
That's right.
Hey, him and Mitchell went 41 and 41. I think
that's right.
Like an overtime game. So yeah, it's a little bit of LeVert roulette. I don't know if this tweet made it over to Celtics Twitter, but someone on Cavs Twitter said that Karis LeVert plays every basketball game like he got possessed by a different NBA player every morning. But he doesn't get to pick who it is. And so we're going to be hoping that the spirit of Michael Jordan is with Karis LeVert for this series. Because if it's not, we could be in trouble.
It has happened.
That's a great one, Swooney. Yeah,
Ben,
he fucking kept them alive today, dude. Like without
he was huge.
He was
today.
good.
They don't win that game 7 without. I think he had 10 points in the second quarter when they were really dead in the water. So. Hey, sometimes he gets the right spirit with him. I don't know.
So in terms of who I'm worried will cook on the Cavs side, Max Strus is the name that I had as well. And that just completely feeds back into that Heat PTSD. There might even be some Cavs fans listening being like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, there's a history there. So bear with me. And he knows the assignment, right? Like he has disrupted our best players as part of that Heat defense in the past. So for someone who can elevate their game to that extent, Max Strus, I don't know. It feels weird to say it out loud, but that's just how I feel. So I'm sticking with that. They do have theoretically good wing defenders in Isaac Okoro as well in terms of slowing down the Jays. So there's some potential for impact there as well. But as far as like who I'm most afraid of on the Cavs, unfortunately for Cavs fans, they're sort of being eliminated by injuries. Like Jarrett Allen would have been the top of that list. Dean Wade up there just because of recency bias, I think as well. I do think if Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, this is not a hot take at all. Like, they're incredibly good offensive players. If they can get Horford switched onto them, if they can get, I think it's going to be Cornette off the bench as well. If they can get the big corn dog switched onto them, they're obviously going to cook in those environments. So that's where the Cavs are going to generate a lot of offense that we need to be wary of. So it's obviously it's an easy answer, but the Cavs' two best players are the ones that I'm the most terrified of. That and Max Strus and potentially Dean Wade if he does come back.
The whole roster.
And Mobley. I don't know. What if he hits threes?
yeah. Not to mention game one. Absolutely
Tristan
must
Thompson
win.
could get some
but I
rebounds.
digress.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I bring a healthy level of fear into all of these series. I think folks in the chat, let me know if you agree. Anyone else on either side here, guys? Any other names that we haven't brought up that stand out to you, or anyone you think might have a real bed shitter of a series? Is this matchup just not for anyone particularly on either roster?
Well, someone that I think that the Cavs fans would maybe hope could play in this series, because like he also was huge today, Sam Merrill. We kind of have a Spider-Man meme, Sam Hauser, Sam Merrill type situation going on here. I'll ask you this, Tony. How much pain has it caused you that Georges Niang played like double the amount of minutes than Sam Merrill in this series?
Listen, I was losing that at certain points, okay? Because the thing is, the reason why you can't play Sam Merrill is defensive concerns, but that's why you have Georges Niang out there, right? Like, it's like, what are we doing here, man? Like, at some point, you got to put him out there. As you said, big year for white guys named Sam, so love that for them. But this matchup, I think I said this on a recent when I went live after Game 7. I really wanted Sam to be in the rotation against Orlando. Against Boston, it's a little more difficult. It's a little more difficult against you guys because, again, you would just have way more options to target Sam and pick on him. When it came to the Magic, the Cavs were really able to keep the lid on the rim. A lot of these games were rock fights. They were very low scoring. I don't know if you can keep the lid on Boston for 4 out of 7 games. You're going to have to win a couple shootouts if you want any chance of being in this series. And so on one hand, Sam can help you win those shootouts. But on the other hand, he's also going to give up a lot. And I don't think Sam is as bad defensively as some people might think he is. He's a very smart positional defender. But there's just a lot of guys on the Celtics who can pick on him, put him in the post, really bully him. So, and you also just have a great switchable team. It's not going to be easy for him to get open. So tough matchup for him. You guys mentioned Strus a little bit. Listen, I'm hoping he brought some of that devil magic to Cleveland because the only chance they have is going scorched earth from downtown. I feel like that's really the best, if not the only chance the Cavs have of staying in this series is winning some shootouts and getting that 3-point variance on their side. And Max Strus is the king of 3-point variance, as the Cavs have learned throughout the year.
Yeah, real quick on the offense. So the Cavs have Clean and Glass includes the play-in teams for some reason. So you guys have the 18th best half-court offense in the playoffs so far.
Oh, no.
And I think a part
Sounds
of
right.
it is like, yeah, when two great defensive teams, it just slows down. It's a rock fight. It's kind of like contagious. Like bad shooting is contagious sometimes, weirdly. But how do you see, like, what I know, like, we have a great defense. We have a lot of switchable defenders. But what do you think is, like, the scab the Cavs can pick at on that Celtics defense?
I think maybe a lack of rim protection. I think if Mitchell is able to get downhill, there's not as many options there, especially with KP out. Mitchell, again, surprisingly incredible at the rim in this series, despite the knee injury. If he's able to shred that point of attack defense, which is going to be a challenge, but Jalen Suggs is no joke either, and he managed to have success there too. So that would be what you would hope is that, I know I just said the 3-point variance is the key, but if he can get downhill and finish at the rim, that opens up the 3-point variance because now you can drive and kick. Now you can cause the collapse and open up shots, which they really were not able to do against Orlando. So getting into the paint, making Boston feel them and feel like they have to rotate over early because of that lack of a rim protector, that would open up the rest of the floor for them in a way that they weren't able to do against Orlando.
Yeah, it's a big Horford series, obviously, with no Porzingis. Cornette's been pretty good though. Like, I'd probably, if Jared Allen's like actually one of the most underrated players in the league, Cornette almost doesn't qualify for that kind of conversation. Right. I feel like he's, but like, I would guess most, fans of other teams have no idea really who Luke Cornette is, but the Celtics went 21-4 without Porzingis this year, and a huge part of that was, the roster is stacked, but Luke Cornette is like really solid, and like rim protection's kind of his thing. But yeah, Ben talked about the switching with that. Can Al Horford not show his age? He hasn't really at this point throughout this season, but part of that has been because his minutes are down relative to last year because of Porzingis, who's not here, and this series is every other night. So like, yeah, it's great that this series went 7, but it also meant that the 7 games potentially are condensed. There's no breaks in this series. So if they're able to steal 1 or 2 games, does Horford start to show his age a little bit? Horford's age versus Mitchell's knee, the underrated storyline.
Who breaks first?
Print it. What about Jake? Say you're holding the Celtics coaching clipboard. Joe Mazzulla's had to take a toilet break. He's giving you the clipboard. Jake, I need you to run the show. We just talked about what the Cavs' tactical strategy might be against the Celtics. If you're running the show for the C's, how are you going at these Cavs?
I mean, to quote the great Joe Mazzulla, there's no difference between the regular season and the playoffs. It's just a heightened level of emotion and anticipation. It's all about execution. And like, you know, Tony, hopefully if any Cavs fans are listening to this, like we're not a podcast that is going to come out and shit on opposing teams. Like we have the appropriate level of respect. We've been through
Except
a
the
lot
Heat.
of
There's a few exceptions, I was going to say.
yeah, Spoonie was a little more disrespectful in the Heat preview. I'm personally scarred from the last couple of playoff runs. Donovan Mitchell, just an incredible player. But I think it's don't. And Tatum said this all year long. Don't get bored making the right play. And are they going to show help to Tatum? Stay with your base defense. I think drop in this series is an absolutely fine way to play defense. Like funnel Donovan Mitchell downhill. He hasn't been able to shoot the 3 well. Some of the best screen navigators in the NBA, Derek White, Drew Holiday, get over those screens. Al Horford kind of playing. If Donovan Mitchell's going to do what he's done and kind of kill you from the 2-point range, that's actually okay. I would continue to let Mitchell take 30 plus shots. Yeah, I didn't calculate the free throw number in my head today, but like he took 27 shots with how many free throws did he end up taking?
17.
17.
Yeah, 17.
Yeah, so like he got pretty close to the 35 field goal attempt range again today, and like I just don't think that's a sustainable way to beat the Celtics. You have to get to a driving kick. You have to try and get your 3-point numbers up. So I'm like, play drop, funnel Donovan Mitchell into the mid range, and if he kills you on twos, he doesn't even have to kill you on twos. Can you just hold him to a similar efficiency that you had in that first round? And I think you're feeling pretty good going back the other way.
Yeah, and I think that's what the Magic did too. Just to say real quickly, I think the Magic were completely comfortable letting Mitchell get downhill. And hey, if you can beat us on one leg in the paint, go for it. He was able to do it. Well, he wasn't able to do it in Game 6. Game 7, he got that timely help from the supporting cast.
I'm really interested to see like the waltz, the dance of Darius Garland on the defensive end, because like I almost think, okay, obviously you got to attack Garland when the Celtics are on offense, but sometimes you get so focused on attacking one guy, it almost like knocks you out of your actual offense and could be detrimental. It's like what we see with Sam Hauser. Everybody's like, oh, who's that white guy? Like, I'm going to go at him in isolation. And then he's like, not that bad. And I mean, Garland's not nearly the size of Sam Hauser, but sometimes you just get to a turnaround from 15 feet against Garland and you miss it. And that's not really a good shot and it's not good offense. So I'll be interested to see what Bickerstaff does if we do have success against Garland too. Like there's just a lot of that feels like a real pivot point of the series for me.
Yeah, I feel like the Celtics struck a near perfect balance with targeting Tyler Hero in round 1. So hopefully we see a lot of that same rhythm going forward with the approach on Garland there as well. Look, I think we're pretty close to wrapping up the preview of round 2 before we get to some around the league stuff. Any other takes you've got that you sort of yet to fire off on this round?
Well, this is the home. No, it's not necessarily a home. This is like the very pro Boston kind of look for me. Like the Cavs are not the Celtics. So like for people that are looking for confidence going into this series, as Celtics fans are, like this Magic team has a disgusting offense. Like I think that they ended up being like, I think they were 20-something, 21st or something in the regular season coming into this series.
Yeah, they were the lowest of any playoff or play-in team.
And so like the Celtics had the best offense in the league this year. So that's obviously a massive difference. And then you look at the experience thing, which is, the Magic, I had a look at the top 5 of each of these teams and their like total playoff games played. So the Magic, Paolo, France, Suggs, Wendell Carter, Gary Harris, 61 total playoff games after this series. The Cavs, Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, Allen, Strus, 143 total playoff games played. Tatum, Jalen, Drew, Derek White, Al Horford, 514 games played. And I will say part of that's a little bit juiced because I've replaced Porzingis with Al Horford. Al Horford has 172 games versus Porzingis is 14. But even if you like switch those numbers, you're at like you're close to 400 games played. And I thought that the Cavs looked like a team that still lacked experience. And to quote the great Jared Allen, the lights were brighter than I expected. They looked a little bright at times for the Cavs, especially on the road. No home court advantage. This Celtics team has been through a lot. And so the experience factor, I think, will probably show itself a little bit in this series as well.
Yeah, well, Tristan Thompson hasn't lost to the Celtics yet. So
Yeah.
if we have anything to ride on, the East might go through Cleveland. I'm just kidding. I love it. I said at the start, if they can just compete, I'll be happy. I think that's where the Cavs fans are at. Like, this is the found money series. We're competitive. Not that you want a moral victory at this stage, but I'll be content with it.
Fair.
Yeah, Spoonie, let me know if you agree or disagree, but even just objectively, it's hard to not pick the Celtics in a low amount of games, and I really like the Cavs, and we've had good fan-base to fan-base relations with the Cavs fans over the years, and Tony, it's always a pleasure when you come on the show, so I don't have a single negative thing to say about the Cavs, and like despite that, I'm very much thinking Celtics in 5, and I alluded to this earlier in the show, like I'm a panic-struck Celtics fan, so I don't take these things lightly, and yet still Celtics in 5 seems like the sort of natural result to me. What do you think, Spoons?
Yeah, for some reason, once LeBron left, all of a sudden I liked the Cavs. I don't know, it must have been a coincidence or something like that. Yeah. I'm thinking 5 or 6, but if I'm the Cavs, like, we're going to concede pull-up threes just because of the drop coverage, and I would just fire the fuck away and see what happens. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's going to be there, make us get out of that drop, and then you can get downhill. So, but I'm with you. It just... Man, especially without Allen, and I know we don't have KP, but I think people are still underrating how good Al Horford still is. So, yeah, I think I'm going to lean Celtics in 6, though. I like this Cavs team. I think they have some ways they can attack us, and they're still they did a really good job. I know the Magic offense is not good, but I thought they did a really good job just keeping the Magic on the perimeter and forcing them into what they do worst.
I got Celtics in 5. That's
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we get a Celtics or Cavs in X figure from you yet, Tony?
I don't know if I made an official prediction. I will say I'm kind of torn because I was gonna say Celtics in 5, but if he's going Celtics in 6, and I'm the Cavs guy, I think I'm gonna have to give them that extra game. I think again what it comes down to is the Cavs just got to hit threes. They shot 28% in round 1. Bold take. If they do that again, this is over in 4. They need to have a couple good games where they're actually hitting shots. I'm interested to see if the Cavs are able to turn any of these games into a rock fight because they are such a good defensive team. But the Celtics are so high-powered, I can't imagine they keep that lid on them for long. So maybe you get a game where it turns into like a weird, ugly rock fight. But yeah, with the injuries, even fully healthy, it's hard. It would have been hard for me to pick the Cavs really winning this series. With the injuries, I would say Cavs in 5 or Celtics in 5. Maybe Celtics in 6 if we get some of that 3-point variance on our side.
Well, the good news for Cavs fans is that there is recent precedent for teams just shooting absolute lights out from 3 over a 7-game series and defeating the Celtics in the playoffs. It has happened before. I really sincerely hope it doesn't happen again. But the blueprint is there, so there's definitely plenty for Cavs fans to hold on to in that sense. We're going to come back in a minute and do a quick around the league. But first, here's another word from our sponsor, this time the Game Time app.
The NBA playoffs have been awesome so far, so it's hard to not think about trying to get to a couple of games. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer to tip-off, which makes it great for last-minute decisions to maybe fly to Boston for the NBA Finals. My dad is literally on the way to Boston from Sydney right now for Game 1 of the second round, and he used Game Time to get his tickets. Game Time has awesome features like seat views. You get a sweet panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. You get a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
That's right, Jazz all off in the chat bedroom. Jake is back with the
His
ASMR
Derek
ad
White
read.
voice.
I tried so hard to have a normal voice when I was recording that, and I was like, 5 times. I'm like, apparently I can't speak normally.
Just embrace who you are.
When doing it.
The people love it.
Future in ASMR advertising.
So the Game Time app, that's the first time we've run that ad on this show. Jake, you mentioned old man's on the way over to Boston. What's the Game Time experience been like there?
Easy, fantastic. Yeah, he was stoked. I was like, look, there's a new app to get tickets. Apparently it's, even better than some of the other apps out there. So yeah, he hopped on. He couldn't find the schedule for until I was like, I got you, Dad. I got the schedule. So you know what days the games are on. But yeah, no, he's going to be there Game 1. Bring back some souvenirs. He'll be ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, fantastic service. Definitely check it out, Game Time. Now, Knicks, Pacers, Wolves, Nuggets, OKC, Mavs are the other series going on around the league. I feel like we got to start with Wolves, Nuggets. That's probably the most exciting series going on, including the one that we've just spent an hour discussing. The Wolves obviously take Game 1. The Anthony Edwards narrative becomes even more inflated. I'm starting to think, rightfully so. I don't we're rolling our eyes here as Tatum stands, but it's hard to deny at this point what Anthony Edwards is doing, under the bright lights at such a young age. Tony, what's your take on this series? Obviously the Nuggets dropped Game 1. Do you think now that it's going to come back and rattle off 4, or how do you see this going?
Man, entering the playoffs, I felt like it was hard for me to see any team beating the Nuggets. But Anthony Edwards has been such a dog. He's been so incredible. Usually, I subscribe to the belief that you need that experience to really get anywhere in the playoffs. So I kind of feel like I'll still pick Denver in this one, but the Timberwolves are that's a good matchup for them. And Anthony Edwards has been so incredible that I wouldn't be surprised anymore if they manage to rattle off and win that series. Kind of feel like the winner of that series goes to the finals and probably meets Boston there. So you might be doing a preview with whoever comes out of that one.
Yeah, man, I've been Mr. Denver, I think, for all year, and they feel unbeatable, close to unbeatable for me. But that has kind of all been predicated on Jokic being by far and away the best player in any series.
Yeah.
Even in a series against Giannis, I thought that this is one of the biggest gaps we've had between the best player in the league and the second best player in the league. He's looked human, not just yesterday, but in Games 5 against the Lakers too. The Nuggets have not looked good,
No.
really at all in this playoffs. They were losing for 75% of that Lakers series. Celtics get talked about for playing with their food. The Nuggets go down 18-4 to start that game. The matchup's tough. The Anthony Edwards stuff, yeah, I'm kind of with you, Ben. I've been obviously someone's okay, Anthony Edwards is awesome. Can we see it? The Bill Simmons voice. Can we see it? Can we see it? But the Suns series was awesome, but I wasn't super impressed because I was the Suns they're just begging for a reason to get to Cancun. But this Nuggets team is legit. Defensively, they've been awesome. That being said, KCP's a little hobbled. But, you can't say enough about what Edwards did in Game 1. 43 points. He had Murray in absolute hell for a chunk of that game, protecting the rim. It's funny, I've been someone that's always been they're very similar archetypes to me, Tatum and Edwards. These kind of apex wing type players, really good defensively, much better defensively than their typical, scoring, the Devin Bookers of the world type guys, but also prone to inefficient nights. The inefficient nights have been gone for Edwards in 4 out of 5 of his playoff games right now. And if he's going to play like this and Denver can't adjust, and Jokic looks human, I couldn't believe the shots that he was missing at the rim. He doesn't miss those shots against us. So I'm still not moving off Nuggets yet, but it's a must win. It's a must win game 2.
Must win for sure.
Absolutely.
So, Ant is shooting 60% on pull-up 2s and 40% on pull-up 3s in the playoffs, and 55.5% on catch and shoot 3s. Like, he's gonna cool off, and if he doesn't, he's probably the best player in the league, right?
Yeah.
But he's gonna cool off a little bit, and I do think it's going to go 7. I think it'll probably be Nuggets in 7, but that's a way to come out with the T-Wolves and show you're not afraid of the defending champs, man. Like, they were super impressive. Ant was obviously crazy good. He's so goddamn athletic. It almost feels like unfair how quick he is with the ball in his hands, but I think he'll cool off some, but man, they're in for a fight, dude. Like, they got to pull it together. Yeah, I think, Jake, you saying KCP's hobbled, like, I don't know who the hell they put on him because Aaron Gordon can't handle him. He's not nearly quick enough. So I'm not sure what option they have, which is kind of terrifying if you're a Nuggets fan. But I just still think Jokic, he'll figure it out. He'll turn it around. I think they'll be fine, but it's going to be a good series.
Yeah, I just think regardless of what happens, and it's a tough one to predict with just the 1 game sample size, but just the stage is set for Jokic, the best player in the world, one of the best players we've seen in this millennium. The stage is set for him to solve the biggest problem that he's come up against thus far, I think, at least in the postseason. And just to be able to sit back and watch him work through that, the way that he mentally approaches the game, is just a hoops luxury. So I don't know who I've got coming out in this series, but I know I'm excited to see how Jokic and the Nuggets adjust to what they saw from the Wolves in game 1. Knicks Pacers, got to get to that because whoever wins this highly competitive series between the Cavaliers and the Celtics is going to come up against one of those 2 teams. I had the Knicks over the Sixers in round 1. I just thought their health at that stage before Tibbs had completely driven the ball into the ground and just their tenacity was going to get up and under the Sixers, and it did in 6 games. And I think this series is much harder to pick, and that's kind of just par for the course with getting into the deeper rounds of the playoffs. But you've got the Pacers pace, for lack of a better term.
There we go.
They run and gun style basketball. We've got the Knicks doing what they do. Will their physicality and grit be enough to slow down the Pacers, Spoonie? What do you think? Who do you see coming out of this one?
Yeah, man, Milwaukee was so injured. I'm not sure how much you can really take away from that series. And even at times, the Pacers kind of had trouble just like blowing them out or running by them. So, except for in Game 6, they handled business in Game 6 for the most part. But I think the Knicks are just a better team. They've been better all season. Hallie Still's not like early season Halliburton, so I think I'd probably take Knicks in 6. I think the Pacers will shoot their way to a couple wins, but for the most part, I just think the Knicks are a more complete team on both ends.
I'm in a tough spot because I think that the Knicks are frauds. I picked the Sixers.
I do too, but
I like that. So they won the series by 1 point. Obviously, they won it in 6, but like, I want to know what happens in that alternate universe where the Knicks lose game 2 and the Sixers win game 2, and it's a tied series 1-1 as opposed to the Knicks end up kind of going up 3-1. I want to know, like, it was a coin flip series, and the Sixers, I mean, they looked like garbage half the time as well. Embiid's on like one leg. Kyle Lowry, Batum, Tobias Harris, Oubre, like pretty rough. I don't know. Does the Tibbs playing his guys 50 minutes a game show up at some point? Like, so far it hasn't. Like, he played 6.5 guys in game 6. The Pacers, like, they run. It's a complete clash of styles. Knicks are one of the slowest teams in the league. Pacers are by far the fastest team in the league. I find the Pacers are actually really good at getting teams to play their style, similar to the Knicks. So it's a great stylistic clash. But I can't. The Pacers are 26th in defensive rebounding percentage. And so that alone, I think, might just end the series because the Sixers were 25th and they rebounded like 40+% of all their misses. If that's going to happen, the Knicks are going to win the series. So I got Knicks in 6 as well.
I can tell you all about that rebounding problem. I know all about that. I'd probably go Knicks in 5 even. I think Indiana's good. Maybe I'm just a little skewed because of what New York did to the Cavs, and it was weirdly cathartic seeing the Knicks do it to another team. So I'm like, okay, maybe it wasn't just us. Maybe the Knicks are actually pretty dang good at rebounding. So yeah, I don't know. I just think the Knicks, they're such a tough, scrappy team, and what they did to the Cavs is going to stick in my mind for a while. And they kind of did it again to Philly. While that series was ridiculous, they really could have gone either way. I just think Indiana, because of how much they kind of struggled to close out Milwaukee, considering all the injuries that were going on, I'd probably lean Knicks pretty heavily. But you never know. Again, a team like Indiana that can score in a hurry, you never want to overlook them.
Well, Celtics and Cavs fans, we can all unify in wanting that series to go as long and as grueling as possible.
Yeah,
OKC
there were no winners
Mavs,
there.
That's right. OKC Mavs, we'll wrap up on this and just quickly because we're running over time as usual. I've got the OKC Thunder coming out of this one, who in our pre-regular season show, I pointed out OKC as fakers. I said I did not believe. I thought they were too young. Now they're the first seed in a highly competitive Western Conference, so not a good take, but that's all right. You got to sometimes put your own receipts on the table and expose yourself. Poor phrasing. Never expose yourself.
Always
Anyway.
expose yourself.
Expose yourself to the youngs in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, this is a great thing about doing the show live. You can't edit out your own fuck-ups. OKC, I think offensively, defensively, they're just too powerful on both sides of the ball. And I think the Mavs playoff run, as exciting, scintillating as the Kyrie-Luka duo has been thus far, I think they caught a dud there going up against that iteration of the Clippers team. I just think OKC is going to be too powerful for them on all fronts. What do you reckon, Jake?
I appreciate the Kelly Olynyk comparison from Mo Lester Jr. in the chat here.
That's high praise.
High praise. Celtics legend. Look, the Thunder winning the West is kind of, as my retirement kind of is hinged on that one as someone that bet them before the series. So I've been loving it all before the season. I've been loving it all year long. I think the Mavs are frauds. Luka hasn't looked good. I don't know if it's injury related or not. The Thunder are so well balanced, man. Like they were top 5 in half court offense and defense. Like people think that they're not ready or whatever because they're young. Like they're ready, man. Like these guys are so mature for their age. I don't see Lively and Gafford being able to punish Chet in a way. Like even Valanciunas, who like had a lot of success, like kind of bullying Chet at times. Chet dominated the matchup from an overall impact perspective because of the way that he spreads the floor, the way that he gets that offense moving, and the way that he protects the rim. I think they're way too well balanced. I think that the Dallas defense is going to get fucking torn to shreds by the way that the Thunder played offense.
Yeah, I well said, Jake. The Mavs kind of impressed me, just kind of like they found the balance between Kyrie and Luka in that Clippers series as it went on. But yeah, OKC's just, I think, a much better, deeper, well-rounded team. So I'll take OKC and 6. Yeah. I wanted to say 5, but I'll go 6 because I'm a coward.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I think I would say OKC and 6. It's a weird situation because I think the Thunder are clearly the better team, but anytime Luka is over there, how comfortable can you feel? He's just the type of guy who can go absolutely nuclear and beat you on his own. And then you have Kyrie, who is playing the best basketball he's played since Cleveland, honestly. It's been nice to see because Kyrie was probably my favorite player of all time prior to all the insanity. So it's nice to see him kind of return to form a little bit and have a year where there's no drama. He's just hooping. So it's nice to see, but the Thunder are just the better team. So I'll go Thunder in 6.
Yeah, I think I subscribe to that as well. Well, look, a lot of fun ball playoff series going on around the league at the moment. We'll be keeping tabs on all of them and back with more podcasts every day or two on this channel. Tony, thanks so much for joining us. I think we got your prediction, which was Celtics in 6, I believe, 5 or 6.
I kind of cheated. I said 5 and 6, so we'll go Celtics in 6.
Look, I know it's kind of cliche to ask, but I appreciate all of you guys and putting out your predictions. These things are tough to size up ahead of time, but that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us, Tony. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me. Always love recording with you guys. You can find me at Tony Pesta on Twitter or YouTube. I'll be doing breakdowns of this whole series probably. Try to get a preview out tomorrow again. Very quick turnaround, and I was not going to jinx myself by getting ahead of schedule and writing a preview because we saw how that Game 7 went. So really looking forward to this series, and thanks again for having me.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. All right, we'll be back live on this channel again after Game 1. Spoonie, Jake, love your work, guys. Until next time, go Celtics.
I love the Celtics!